Crisis, Recovery, and Growth, a marketer's roadmap for challenging times. So I'm sure from our home office to your home office, we hope you're all safe and that you're used to using Zoom and other video telepresence products. You should all be muted now, and if you'd like to ask a question, you look for the question submit feature, and you can, anytime during the presentation, you can ask a question, and we will address it in the final 15 minutes of the hour. My name is Eric Newton. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Milestone, and your speakers today are going to be Sam Khandelwal, Head of Customer Solutions at Milestone and Organic Guru, and Ilya Cherepakin, Head of Performance Marketing at Milestone and the Media Guru. Milestone is a leading provider of digital marketing software and service solutions for hospitality, retail, financial, and B2B tech, with the only SEO-first CMS in the market. We combine software and services together to provide a solution that's really unique and drives substantial results for our customers. So before we get on with the content, our hearts go out to our friends in New York City and Chicago and every city that's hard hit around the world. We have customers and we have partners and friends and former colleagues in New York, and we hope everybody's staying safe and that you can flatten that curve and get everything under control and get back on the mend as soon as possible. So today's agenda for the Marketer's Roadmap is pretty simple. We're going to introduce the crisis, recovery, and growth in the 3 phases, and then we're going to discuss 15 specific tactics within those phases. And we will highlight the takeaways within each phase, and then at the end, we'll summarize some of the next things we recommend that you do, and of course, we'll take questions. So when the crisis began in early March, our customers were looking to us for guidance. Our customers wanted suggestions on how to react, and that's how we kind of developed the crisis response part of this framework. And then, of course, everybody wants to know, okay, I've got the first couple weeks covered. What do we do in the second month? And what do we do in the third month? And that's the crisis, recovery, and growth framework that our founder, Banu, put together. And as we started to look at the channels you would work on and the marketing tactics that you would engage, in order to make it more simple, we've got a simple framework today, and then we're going to drill down in channels over the next couple of weeks throughout April. And we have lined up some fantastic speakers, some of the best thought leaders in the industry. So it'll be like an event where we're going to be having 2 or 3 great speakers in each of these webinars. And as we get a better handle on when we are in recovery and growth, we're going to add more to the series in May. And we look forward to having you join us for those events on April 2nd, April 15th, April 23rd, and April 29th, and you'll be able to see invitations coming out from us on how to sign up. So in the crisis phase, we saw businesses innovating quickly, digitizing quickly, and mostly doing the right things. So in some cases, people are establishing new business relationships where they really wanted to have delivery. They might have been partnering with one delivery company or another, and in order to serve their customers better, established new relationships that can grow and support them through recovery and growth. We see some of the nonprofit community, like the aquariums, wanting to share the fun experience of being in an aquarium. So they set up video cams and then ask for donations so that they can keep generating revenue for all the animals and all the people who work there. We saw travel companies waive cancellation fees on tickets and hotel rooms that were normally non-cancelable. These are all things that develop goodwill. And in the last couple of days, we've started seeing companies reacting like we're on wartime footing, and they are doing everything they can. Great examples from Tesla that they're going to convert their factories to make or refurbish the ventilators. I see interesting companies like Nexus building using 3D printers to build face shields And this is an interesting one. And they're using it in their advertising. We made shoes yesterday and we're making masks today, and that's New Balance. And this is an interesting way of them, doing the right thing and using it as doing the right thing as a vehicle to communicate with their customers that we're a good brand and you should do business with us. But it's an interesting soft message that is starting to lean into the recovery phase, and they're out of the crisis phase of like, oh gosh, what do we do with our factories and our people and our people working from home. So let's get into the 3 strategic phases of crisis, recovery, and growth. We've built this infographic to make it a little bit simpler and a little bit cleaner for what we're going to be talking about. And the truth is, as marketers, we are going to have to deal with almost every channel, almost every week throughout this crisis, just like we would in our regular work. It's still an omni-channel environment. But in the crisis phase, it became clear to us that some things were really needed to be prioritized. And those were the website, some of the SEO, and local content, and responding with what hours had changed and giving people new instructions on how to deal with this absolutely massively disrupted economy that we were working in the first couple weeks of March. And now, at end of March, beginning of April, we're starting to get used to the new normal. Companies like us are, we're developing webinar series like we normally would. We can't have the kind of events we used to. So we'll probably be doing more of these. And we're working on website, and we've got adjustments to paid media and SEO, and email is always, always helping distribute and amplify those messages. And then as we get to the growth phase, some of the things we established and the foundations we built in the crisis and recovery phase will be expanded and scaled up in that 3rd phase. So that's the model. And so in the crisis stage, we are going to conserve, adjust, and engage. And I'm going to hand over to Sam Candelwall, and he's going to walk you through the information we put together for you for this stage.
Thank you, Eric. Some of you have mentioned that you cannot see the slides correctly. So if it helps, you may want to go into your Zoom settings and click on View to Fit window. Hopefully that works. So let's all take a pause, take a deep breath. This is a crazy, crazy time. I'm Sam Candelwall. I head solutions at Milestone, and just trying to deal with this just like every one of you. I hope everyone is safe and comfortable. The thing about this is unprecedented. As opposed to all the previous crises that happened, this is not a financial crisis. This is a healthcare crisis that's leading to financial distress. And so the way we try to look at it is like, in 2 different ways. One was based on Milestone has been around for 2 decades. So you thought about during the dot-com bubble, at the 9/11 crisis, and the financial crisis, what are some of the learnings that we developed? And the second thing was like just looking at, we did some experiments, and we've been doing some experiments. So what are some of the learnings that we can share with you during this time? So a lot of us, a month ago, the way we used to get groceries is you'd go into a grocery store. The way, you'd go to a restaurant and just, the only thing you'd have to worry about is, do I need to make a reservation? And now we've all as consumers, we've all had to adapt. And suddenly we find ourselves standing 6 feet apart, trying to sanitize our carts, wearing masks or not wearing masks, wearing gloves. And it's just adapting to a new way of life. Similarly, businesses are also having to adapt and respond to this crisis. So for example, pet stores, grocery stores, restaurants, you may have in the last few days at some point in time or the other ordered online, or now there's this option for curbside pickup that everyone is trying to respond and scramble. So if you're location-based businesses, you've had to respond in specific ways to engage with your customers to deal with this crisis. On the other hand, if you are a B2B, if you're selling to businesses, your lifeblood, which was trade shows, conferences, and events, are no longer options for you. So all of us are scrambling to just like sign up for this webinar or virtual events. And since we can't visit customers, we are now have Zoom check-ins. In fact, just like Google, Zoom has now become a verb. So we're all now Zooming. So it's unprecedented. in the way everyone is just adapting and how we are responding. There's no playbook. So we'll just try to look at what are some things that, we have learned over previous crises and some things that we have experimented. So what's one of the first things that you do when you want to know about a business or when you want to connect with the business? You go to their website. However, when there's a crisis of this magnitude and scale, you just can't have your website just have your regular spiel and just try to connect with the audience. You need to have empathy. You need to understand that as each one of us, we are anxious, we are fearful, we are uncertain. So we need to address, and go into the mindset of our customers, empathize with them. So what one of our clients did is they put up this banner. They said, look, right now is not the time to sell them anything. Right now, a lot of people are not looking to make major decisions. So instead, what they came up with is like, look, you're staying at home, we're staying at home, so let's have some fun together. We are better together. So they created this banner front and center on their homepage that leads to this beautiful landing page where it's like, and this is a hotel. So, and they asked their chef, they said, hey, can you just give us some of your recipes? So they said, how do you make cupcakes? Or because we are washing our hands so much, how do you make a coconut scrub during this time? So they decided instead to engage with their customers. And so the banner was used to drive you into this curated experience. The landing page engages you, and the call to action is a soft call to action. There's no hard sell at this point in time because you need to empathize with your customers. Instead, it's like, sign up for a newsletter when you're going to be ready, when we are going to be ready to transact, then we'll talk about that later. So right now, let's just have the conversation going. So that's one way in which. The second aspect is you need to ensure that your website is up and running, all the information is accurate. So make sure your website is maintained and up to the usual standards. One of the most frustrating things when, and this has happened to me just lately, I was trying to go for a banh mi in San Francisco, a Vietnamese sandwich, was I landed up at the place to pick up. And suddenly the posted hours over there said, sorry, we're shut early. No, I completely understand. No, businesses are not functioning as normal. However, the thing is that from a consumer perspective, if you don't have the right number, if you land up at the wrong place, or if you, if the hours that are posted there, suddenly you can't find a response, then that's frustrating. So as marketers, we need to ensure all our listings, that is, if you look at this graphic over here, across search engines, across all the hyperlocal platforms, across all the data aggregators that are feeding into the series, the OK Googles, and all the different other listings that they power, all the maps, all the social channels, they are updated with accurate information that is relevant to the needs of your customer, and you're updating that frequently. So one of the things, and this has to work across all the devices, all the channels. So what we did at Milestone is we built this centralized hub. We said, instead of trying to make changes across 20 different places, let's just have a centralized data hub, make changes over there, and we do that every single night. So this ensures that you have the most accurate information that's relevant and you're updating that frequently. Now, some opportunities that you may want to consider is UNAP, which is your URL, your website address is accurate. The phone number is accurate. Your address is reflecting what your current address is, and your phone number, so your name, address, phone number, and URL. There's some interesting options available like Google Posts. Now this may not be available for all industries, but this is a way for you to communicate. FAQs, these are FAQs on your Google listing. Descriptions, reviews, images, there's lots of different opportunities out there to try and connect with your customers and take over a lot of the Google real estate. So I have 3 examples for you. One is this restaurant in New York, God bless New York. The first thing I want to look at is look at their name. They have just changed their name to say curbside takeout available. They've updated their menu in the second. In the third, they're saying, look, we are not available for dine-in. There's no delivery, but we have takeout. And because Google has this notice on pretty much every listing that because of COVID-19, they are just updating the hours and making sure they reflect the accurate hours, because otherwise Google is going to crowdsource that information and people can mark you as closed if they find that during a posted hours you're not open. And if enough people do that, then that could affect your listing. However, if you're an Apple store and you know that you're going to be closed for 14 or more days, then Google has a special option for you saying you are temporarily closed. Instead, you're redirecting people to your website where you have the right messaging and saying that transact and work with us online, and we can resolve all your challenges and you can transact with us online and while our stores are shut. And if you're a brand and there's several options for you, for your customers to connect with you, make sure that all the information is accurate. If you have an online chat option, it works. More importantly, when you have online chat options and phone numbers, that you're setting the right expectation, that there is someone who is available on your customer support team to answer that. If not, either you take it off or you ensure that on the landing page, you set the right expectation. We are available during this crisis, during this specific band of hours. So make sure that you have the most accurate information that's available. This is for the knowledge panel for folks who don't have a local listing, so it doesn't apply to them. So the bottom line is that if you're not in control of your listing or knowledge panel, Google is gonna crowdsource that information and you lose control. So it's best that you take control and update this frequently. So zero-click is something that you may have heard of, and I'm not sure if everyone is familiar, but zero-click is basically when Google is answering your question on Google itself so that you don't have to click onto a website. So during this time, a lot of us have questions, right? I mean, if we have made previous bookings, we just want to know, hey, how do I cancel? Or you just want to know more about if you're trying to, for example, one of our clients is a bank, and what they're trying to highlight is, since you can't visit the branch, what are some things that you can do online? For example, you can deposit checks online, or if you want to know what is my routing number. So all those things can be found online. And similarly, if you're McDonald's and you're priming people to use McDelivery or pick up from curbside, you want to answer all their questions. For example, what are the different meals that I have? What is the nutrition information, so that there's less friction in terms of what they're trying to do, which is, what do I order for dinner, for lunch? The most important thing is during the crisis phase, you can create crisis-related FAQs, answer all those questions, but also have some evergreen FAQs which answer all the things that you want people to do online during this phase. So this is a great way. And we have a case study just for that we tried, and how we achieved twice the click-through rate from search to the website as compared to the rest of the website. So the first thing that we did is, what we noticed is with this client is a lot of customers are asking about the coronavirus and how that's impacting the brand. The next thing we did is we verified a lot of those questions that we got from their sales team, their customer support team, and confirmed it in Search Console. And also added that, looked at Google, people also asked, saying, what are some of the other questions people with the similar intent asking? We built content around it, FAQs, linked to the right policies, ensured all the right resources were there on that page, wrapped around the right schemas. We added a banner on the homepage to lead to that content. So two things happened. One, that content started ranking and indexing in Google. And second is, because of the banner, a lot of people started going to those pages. So we had a significant bump in impressions, as well as we had a significant, but more importantly is engagement, because during this time, we're trying to optimize for engagement. Their CTR, the click-through rate from search engines to their pages, increased by 2x, twice the regular rate of the website. So this was significant. And this is, and we are comparing the 2-week period during the crisis to the pre-crisis period. So this is specifically a testament of the new content that we created to address the virus during this phase. As offline events are all getting canceled, and a lot of us are now trying to create virtual events, there are a lot of schemas. So what are schemas? A very simple way to think about it is that you are providing information to Google that this information that I'm putting on, this content that I have on my page is a question and answer. This information that I have is an event. So it's time sensitive. There's specific attributes to that. So all you're trying to do is just tell Google, what is this content that I have, so that they can tag it and they can show it appropriately. So if your example, some of your events are canceled, you can wrap around with schemas. If your events are rescheduled, but more importantly, as you create virtual events, This is like a great way to create visibility for all those virtual events by letting Google know that, hey, I have this webinar, I have all these virtual things that I'm doing that are available during this time. And so ensuring that you're using the right schemas. In fact, just yesterday, Google has said that they have a new COVID related schema. So any announcements, notifications, special pages specific to COVID, there's a new schema that's created so that you can wrap around that content and make sure that Google knows, and Google is going to prioritize those pages as it makes it visible in the next few days or weeks. Social, this is a great channel for you. Right now, a lot of us are just wondering, what are our customers thinking? You know, I'm sure they're as anxious as we are. So a great way to use social is just to ask questions. How are you doing? You know, what are you doing? And just, you know, for example, Hotel Nico, all they're saying is, look, right now, I don't want to sell you anything. I just want to, you know, empathize with you and just tell you how you can keep yourself and your family safe. They're just talking about all the best practices. Expedia is just asking, look, right now we know that you don't want to buy anything, you can't go anywhere. What are some staycation options, you know, and just getting some feedback. What are you doing? Are you watching Netflix? Are you going to Monterey Bay Aquarium and looking at the virtual aquarium? Sprinkles, on the other hand, you know, one of our clients is like, you know, look, we know you're hurting right now. We know you need comfort food. So even if you're sitting in your PJs, we have options for you. We can either deliver cupcakes to you, or we can just, you can just pick it up curbside if you need like a bit of fresh air. So a good way to use social right now is to get a lot of customer intelligence, as well as to, you know, just get feedback from your clients and just engage. Right now, all you're trying to do is keep the conversation going until the time that this crisis is over. AMP is nothing but accelerated mobile pages, something that Google created. And accelerated means it's 10 times faster. Mobile is specific for mobile. So when you're creating all this awesome new content or repurposing all this content, identify which are your key pages and just create AMP versions of them. Just try it out as a small test. Because these specific pages rank higher in Google and they have 20 times the engagement. We did a quick roll up of 12 projects where we deployed AMP, and we are seeing significant bump up in mobile visits and engagement and visibility. So this is a great way to connect better with your audiences and create visibility. Now, this was something that we debated quite a bit internally. A lot of us don't have as many resources right now. We have many other priorities. So should you be doing a digital assessment at this point in time? And the answer was yes, because if you don't do it now, you would not know what to focus on when you are optimizing for recovery. So things like, how's my site doing on mobile? Do I have AMP pages of my, you know, what pages should I be creating AMP pages of, AMP versions of? You know, are my pages loading quickly? How do they compare with competitors? You know, do I have the right content for saturating all the different search results that Google offers? Images, videos, news, local. Is my, you know, am I using the right schemas for all the different types of content that I have so that Google knows exactly how to use them, you know, right? And more importantly, are my competitors overlooking some opportunities? So at least you'll have a roadmap for recovery. So this is why it's critical to just consider a digital assessment. Now, let's all take a deep breath. This is an ad not from a couple of years ago. This is an ad from over 100 years ago. Look at the headline, when in quarantine. This is relevant today. People who are in quarantine are not isolated if they have a Bell telephone. So imagine the Bell telephone was their social network to connect with friends and family. This was their Google. This was their Alexa. This is their entire life. Now, compared to that, we have so many resources today. We're all connected. There's so much information. So we'll get through this. So I think this is we dealt with this over 100 years ago. We survived it and thrived. We are hoping that that happens again, and that is going to happen. So keep the faith. And finally, some quick takeaways before I hand it over to my awesome colleague, Ilya, to talk about how we will help you with recovery. One, make sure your website is up and running and ensure that, you know, you have the presence. Because you have fewer resources, and make sure you repurpose your banners, create landing pages, and instead of hard sell, focus on softer call to action. Just create engagement and connection with your customers. When it comes to COVID-related content, make sure that you ask the source, you know, ask your customer support team, sales team, what are your customers asking? So that you can address those questions, make sure you have it in FAQs and you connect it to the right policies. Create AMP versions of your most critical pages so that when someone's looking for you, they can find you as fast, and the experience, especially on mobile, is fast and it works. When it comes to local listings, make sure all your information is accurate, is relevant to the needs of your customers, and you update it frequently, or Google is going to ask users and update it themselves. Use the Google Knowledge Panel with all the new options that are available to you during the crisis, plus all the other options that are available for your industry, and use all those opportunities for your Knowledge Panel or for your local listings. And as you start to develop new content, think about social for intelligence, as well as to getting feedback, and also to engage with your customers and just stay connected. Schemas, especially for all the new virtual content and events that you are creating, wrap it around the right schemas, and talk to us if you want to know more about schemas, because that can get a little technical, but we have a very easy way to try and develop schemas and to install schemas. And lay the groundwork for voice search. This is an opportunity to try in baby steps to start with voice search and crisis FAQs. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Ilya. Ilya, all yours.
Great job, Sam. Ilya, before we go ahead and set up your presentation, I'm going to launch the poll right now and see what the audience thinks about the questions we put together. All right, so the poll is in market. Great, thanks everybody for participating. Oh, we've already got 150, 200, 100, 130, 140, 50 participants. Are you ready, Ilya? Ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, I'll give it another 10 seconds for the poll.
And judging by our responses, I think folks are also ready to at least start, thinking and planning towards recovery, because,
yeah.
We're getting, May, a little bit of people in May, but definitely
Yeah.
June. And if you think about it, that's just only, two months away.
Yeah. All right. Let me I'll give everybody a couple more seconds to vote, and I'll share the poll with you. So it definitely looks like June is the expected. So looks like what we're talking about here in crisis in March, recovery in April, May, and then a little bit more back to normal and growth and rescaling June. And then some people are thinking later than June. So stop the share and get this out of the way. All right, Ilya, take us away.
All right. Well, as we were just saying, recovery is around the corner, and while you might not feel like right now is the time to be investing in those measures, it's still definitely the time to be thinking about how you would be getting back in the game, what may need to happen, and how can you gradually pivot your business into that new direction, because it will certainly take planning and another round of adjustment. So with that in mind, we've developed a few guidelines, and we're thought of 5 main areas that would help that going. The first and foremost thing to do is to think about unique selling points. There's been a lull. There's been a change in lifestyle, a change in consumer behavior, and people will need to have a reminder, something to spark their interest, to re-engage with you, to potentially consider doing business with you. So that will be really the first and probably the most important thing to do. And yes, some of that can be done through offers, but there are many, many other ways other than discounting that you can accomplish this that we'll talk about. Then getting the word out will be very important, and there are many ways to do that. Digital media is the most immediate one. It's the one where you have also the most control. That's the reason why we decided to put it at second, but SEO is right there with it, because ultimately you do want to make sure that people continue coming to your site, but also returning to your site. And from a technical standpoint, the website is the best it can be. Mobile, absolutely, absolutely critical in the crisis stage, but it will only continue being so. As we know, every year, mobile just becomes more and more important. Best-in-class navigation, AMP, as Sam just discussed, that'll be very, very critical. And finally, email, to tie everything together, to really reinforce the omni-channel strategies that you're doing, but also as a vehicle to start getting loyalty back on track, making sure that you are able to communicate with people on a more personalized basis. That will be absolutely key. So let's talk about unique service propositions. As we were saying, discounts are absolutely important and they have their place in the strategy, One way to slowly get back into doing that is to do targeted offers by geography. So if you are a business, if you're a restaurant, if you're a hotel, but even if you are, B2B and you don't have a particular storefront, ultimately, based on your brand footprint, certain geographies, be they near or far, will tend to do better. You tend to have a better resonance or a better presence in certain areas. Go after those first. Service updates are also very important not to overlook, particularly if you are a location-based business, letting people know that you are ready and open to work with people. That's a good way to get the word out and also start seeing what is the initial response like. A lot of the planning in recovery is going to be about data collection and figuring out what starts to work initially and then crafting your path from that. And getting people to just coming back to you in bigger numbers, that will help with that type of planning. Benefits and trials. In the crisis stage, it was all about empathy. Now it's going to be more about offering people's tools and support and re-educating them and reminding them of all the different things that they've missed during that time. So sending out some guides, sending out some tips, that's going to be very helpful for people to start figuring out how they can get back to where they were prior to everything beginning. And lastly, a creative way to repackaging everything that you already have might just be enough. The last example that we have here is basically an advertising for a staycation where a hotel has bought a couple amenities and created a party for a family. But if you think about it, the family booked the same room they would have booked during the crisis or prior to that. Fundamentally, very little has changed from a business point of view, and very little has, except for messaging. And that made all the difference. So sort of presenting yourself in a new and an interesting way might also be a great opportunity to get people to thinking about you. Digital activation will be next, but we're not suggesting by any means a very large investment. We're recommending to efficiently regain digital presence by prioritizing lower funnel channels and going after the areas where you're going to stand to really control your impression share. Go after the channels and the opportunities where you're going to be able to saturate your space and then work your way bottom up. So remarketing, by definition, is probably going to be the one you want to go after first. It's the smallest, but the best user pool from a point of view of conversion. Many of those people are already on your site. Many of them probably even entered the conversion path, potentially started filling out that lead form. Re-engage with them, bring them back, get them to finish what they were doing, and then go and pursue other tactics such as paid search, particularly branded keywords. With all the different tools that we have at our disposal, from targeting to device settings to audience specifications, seasonality planning by time of day or day of the week, there's a lot of controls that you have at your disposal to make sure that every dollar that you spend will be done very strategically and very usefully. In fact, we still have some clients, we still see people in the digital marketing space who are doing some advertising, and those are the tools that they're employing right now. They literally have a very small budget to keep the lights on with a lot of controls. That is exactly what you would want to be doing in the recovery if you're not doing that already. And then continue working your way up. Non-branded paid search is always going to be important. Yes, it's costly, but it can also be controlled. And that is the way to really reinforce the message that you might be doing with other channels and letting people know that they should be thinking about you. They probably will forget, by the time June or July rolls around. If that's when your business is going to be ready, that's understandable. But think about it. They've spent half a year without really thinking about how to solve their needs and wants with you in hand. So they will definitely need a reminder. And finally, and more so, as you're getting closer to the growth stage, display and social will be important, really just starting to reach out some audiences who you've not interacted with recently. Just a couple great remarketing examples that we've come across. Obviously, ultimately nothing beats a great offer. Just make sure you use it sparingly and you really put it in front of the people who will take advantage of it. The last two examples come from social. The middle one is an ad about fig recipes. The way it was targeted is to a person who was going to buy figs and left that out of their shopping cart. So rather than going after and tell them, buy figs, you forgot figs, which may have worked, Jasper's Market is doing something even better. They're showing a use case for that. which will definitely resonate with the person more because you're answering the real need of why should the person be buying figs beyond that, oh, you didn't. Last but not least, giving somebody an example of something that can help them regain their industry knowledge and seeing what the best industry best practices are. Somebody is sending a guide. Marketo is sharing their content marketing playbook. Very helpful for somebody to refresh their memory, but also then if Marketo was to follow up again, they now have a very warm lead. So it kills two birds with one stone. Remarketing definitely applies to paid search as well. And as you get into the recovery stage and beyond, there are ways to customize your message and landing page and entire experience to users who are qualified and to whom you already know a lot about from their past visit. You can even customize your paid search remarketing experience based on how recently they've been to your site, what they've done on your site. Again, something that's definitely for the recovery stage, not because it will entail an investment and a lot of planning, but also you need data for that. A lot of the steps that we're recommending for recovery, you should implement them only after you start seeing a strong pickup in traffic. SEO, as we were saying, that will need to work hand in hand with all the digital media tactics. And it's important to really take stock of anything that might not have gotten done in 2019 or until now that you really have the best of breed website. Organic visits are going to be coming through more and more as the recovery sets on. So making sure that you have expanded and updated your content. If you've had those FAQs for the crisis stage, they will need updated for the recovery. Making sure that schemas, errors are completely repaired. Anything that has a low-hanging fruit absolutely needs to get resolved. Make sure you add AMP to all of your pages. We really can't stress that enough. Why? Because the majority of traffic is mobile at this point. Mobile is the dominant device. It's no longer a convenience device, especially if we are climbing out of the crisis mode where everyone's just been glued to their phones, anxious for solutions, access for information. And when you overlay that with the sensitivity people have to bounce rates and bad user experience on mobile, if your site doesn't load very well and there are some quirks in the site, people will really not stick and they will not do everything that your offers and your digital media and SEO have been working so hard to get them to do. So some 4 easy solutions. One is just elevating your call to action to as early as possible to the mobile entry pages. So that can be FAQs if it's just quick updates. If you have some more things to share, you have more of a story to tell about, say, a restaurant that reopened, or suddenly now certain services that you're going to be in the position to provide, use a lightbox so that you can get people to engage more in a scrollable carousel as Milestone has been doing. Making sure that your booking engine is as dynamic and as flexible as possible so that people can purchase multiple options, but they also can fluidly navigate back and forth away from the booking engine if they want to double check how much that package costs and what the terms and conditions are like. If they want to go back and look at the details of the free trial that they're signing up for, make sure the booking engine is as flexible as possible. And last but not least, geo-targeted content. I mean, mobile by definition is a geo-targeted device. Take advantage of that. All industries and all verticals can really benefit from customizing messages based on where their customers are. Email, to tie it all together. First and foremost, make sure you have the best information to reach people. Not the email account they've created to check email, the one that they're actually checking and they're responding from. And to do that, incentivize their sign up and make sure you follow up with a beautiful curated experience. It's common for people to give a small token of appreciation for people sharing their details, but you can go further beyond a simple 10%. In the thank you email for subscribing, which they will read more so than possibly any other emails you will be sending to them, provide all the different things that we've been talking about. Give them rich, interesting offers. Tell them how your business is changing. Give them something optimistic to look forward to that brightens their day. Because if you do that, they will read the email. They will click from that. They will engage with your site. They will call your service center. So some takeaways. Make sure you think hard about your USPs right now, especially if you're in the crisis stage. This is the time to, look out the window, think creatively. You have the time to do that. Develop a strong gaming plan that will really set yourself apart from your competitors. As you see signs of traffic rising, run some experiments, optimize your flow and conversion. Start investing in branded terms and paid search. You absolutely will need to defend them. Your competitors will be back, and your audience needs a reminder that you're still there for them and what they can be doing with you. Use targeting to make sure that your media buying is efficient. Improve mobile and leverage email. And we do have a few words about growth that we wanted to share with you, more so just as a vision of where we see everything ending up when you're back in the game. So this is a hypothetical representation of what an omni-channel strategy would look like. At the core, there's your website. That's your digital presence. That's your digital storefront. Whether it's through desktop, and desktop traffic is going to be important, but ultimately mobile is still the name in the game, as well as voice, as well as tablets. Make sure that you have as easy of a way for people to come and reach you. And then amplify that through the different channels that come in digital media, whether it's paid search or programmatic display, whether it's social or native advertising, some more targeted opportunities for meta search or endemic media buys with premium websites that are out there and that are still command strong influence over people. Put together a media plan and gradually roll it out in a controlled and targeted fashion. And I'm confident that we will get back into the game where we've once been. We've had crises before, every decade unfortunately seems to have one, and this one will pass as well. So some next steps that Eric will walk through you to, and we do have a small surprise for everybody at the end as well. Eric, back to you. Eric, I think you're on mute.
Yep. Thank you, Ilya. Thank you, Sam. Great presentations. If you could keep the presentation up for me, Ilya, that'll probably work best. The first step that we recommend to people is that they figure out what stage that they are in, and if they saw anything during the crisis stage that they thought they should do, implement those, and then look at the recovery steps that we're recommending and get ready for those and start implementing those. And then map your plan to these 3 stages. And once you, as the marketing leader, have mapped out a plan, engage your team or your agency to work on that with you and to implement it with you. So sell that plan to them. Don't forget to listen to your customers. Like Sam said, listen to them in social, listen to them in your customer service calls and what's being logged in your knowledge base. And watch for changes in their journeys, see if they're doing things differently, and try to respond to those. And number 5 is one advice we could give in any stage, in any point in our marketing careers, is run experiments and run more experiments. And if you try to run at least 1 or 2 experiments a week, that would be great, but definitely get some of those in market during the recovery phase. And Sam talked about digital assessment, and we are offering to attendees of this webinar a complimentary digital assessment. Join us on the next CRG webinar on content that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And stay safe and stay socially distant. Next slide for me, please, Ilya. And next one. And this is our offer. So we don't have unlimited capacity to do these because they take us a couple hours, but for the first 30 attendees that sign up for this, we can review your content health, your entity and schema health, your mobile readiness, your technical health, your local and your Google My Business. And you get an output that looks like this with more details and more specific tactics to implement to help you towards recovery. Next one. So I'm putting this slide back up to help people with their questions, to kind of remind you of the CRG framework and roadmap. And with that, I will start addressing some of the questions that have come in. So Ilya, we had a couple people ask us, why not discount? And what are we doing? What should we be doing instead of discounting?
So discounting absolutely has a place. I just wanted to give people an opportunity to think beyond that because, first of all, if you discount, your competitor can absolutely outdo you. It also has a strong impact on your bottom line, and everyone's absolutely watching their bottom line right now as we speak. After a while, if you discount your room, 20%, or you give people, 3 months off, giving them 4, 5, 6 extra months off, that's really not going to change their mind of doing business with you. But so you have to think beyond that. So I think you definitely, have discounts as part of your plan, but think about, can you give them maybe a sample of your work for free so that it gets them actually doing the work that you would normally have done, and then that keeps it going. So maybe, give them something small that's, a bite-sized piece. I'll think about repackaging something what you do in a new and interesting way, like I showed was that hotel that basically just, gave a new name to staying with them. If you are used in packaging your services in a certain way, and you're, say, an enterprise technology platform, think about how you can maybe create a more tiered menu so it's a little bit more of a pick and choose situation, so people don't have to commit it to as much, but now they have flexibility. So absolutely, discounting is important, especially if you're going to be doing some remarketing, where you can maybe give, a small discount and then follow up with something else later, or maybe you follow up with something else that's not a discount, then and then you have a discount coming after that. Just make sure that's not the only thing you're doing.
Thanks, Ilya. Another one for you. If your ownership does not want you to spend any money during the crisis phase, when should we advocate for activating paid search again?
Sure. So I think it depends on 2 things. One is the readiness of the business to take on additional customers and be able to service them. So if your business has, say, for example, employees that are no longer with them, how easily they're going to be able to get them back in. So make sure you work on the operational side. And then secondly, just start watching traffic for your business and your competitors and the areas around them. If you're interested in sort of planning a recovery stage, definitely follow up with us offline. We can help guide that. But ultimately, it's going to be up for making sure that the traffic is there. And I'm not surprised that we got different responses in our initial poll. Late May, early June is probably when that's going to hit for most people. But for some people, it will be later. For some people, it will be earlier. So while the ownership may not be ready to invest and start authorizing spending the budget, definitely start planning a plan so that you can deploy it and you're ready when the time comes.
All right, Sam. Sag has a comment that in this day and age, how are sites not mobile friendly? This should have been done 10 years ago. Can you comment on the state of mobile sites among your customers in this job and your last couple jobs? How good or bad is it? And what's the real reality there for people to have a good mobile site?
Yes, I think great question. I think one thing to realize, like, it's not as easy to try and just create a mobile experience. A lot of us, at least even a couple of years ago, we're not geared to creating a desktop experience versus a mobile experience. And so if you look at Google surveys, you still find that speed is just even calculating speed is such a difficult concept. You have 3G, you have 4G, you have different devices, you have like different, connections that people have. You also have like, things like, different industries. So either you have a long scroll page with a lot of information, or you have like a quick, easy loading. So we have other things that we look at, for example, time to first byte that you load and other things. So is mobile improving? Yes, you would have seen even right now, when you are almost forced to go online, you are able to transact online. Oftentimes, what we see is like initially in the journey, people use their mobile phone when they just want to know information. But when they have to read, like, for example, in B2B, a white paper or a long guide, or they want to, or you want them to fill up a form and transact, then they end up, preferring desktop. So I think we will, at least for the time being, be in a universe where in the complex omni-channel journey, people are going to use mobile as well as desktop and multiple devices. So you have to optimize across and seamlessly have connections across all of that. So the short answer is yes, mobile is improving, and there are a lot of opportunities like AMP, which is one of the best opportunity. Take your best pages and create an AMP accelerated mobile page. Google is going to rank it higher. It started out with news and publishing, but now it's open to pretty much all other industries.
All right, Sam, I've got a technical SEO question for you. Ready? Simon's asking, what is the recommendation for COVID-19 update pages? Should they be follow or no follow from an SEO perspective?
Great question. I think our perspective is follow is fine. It is good to be SEO friendly. Also, you want to connect with the community. You want to have links to them. You want to have links. You want to have link back from them. Also, in addition to follow, no follow, follow is the way to go. Use the right schemas. Google has made available all the schemas to ensure that Google knows, that you're tagging and the information correctly for them, so that Google can prioritize it and show it within the right search results.
All right, Sam, that leads me to a related question. What schema should be used for communicating about measures businesses are taking for COVID-19?
So this just came out yesterday, a lot of news about that. There's a new schema type specifically created for COVID-19 notifications, any information, any best practices that you have, basically anything around, even FAQs around COVID-19. Google has not yet made it visible in their search engines. So this is still going to happen over a period of time. Right now, they are prioritizing healthcare related or healthcare brands because that's the more urgent information, but we are getting there. So there's a special schema just created for COVID-19. And that is something that, and so if you want to know more, there is a Google post that's come, and I'm sure Eric, you're aching to write about it, like on our blog also, to provide more information about that. Absolutely.
Ilya, shouldn't essential businesses invest in paid media now during the crisis to promote that they're open and running?
Absolutely, if your budget allows it and the rest of your business can support. We have heard a lot of people in the industry in general are finding tough to convert users who they're bringing to the site with paid channels. So one has to be mindful on sort of the return on your investment. But if you are able to look at it on a more longer term fashion, yes, I would absolutely recommend that, because paid channels do give you the most control. You can ensure that somebody goes to the very landing page that you've been wanting them to do, that they see the right message that you wanted to relay to them. You can track, to a great detail what they do post-site and upon return visits. So if you are able to still get a little bit of a budget together and look at it more as an investment in messaging and an overall tool for reaching out to potential audiences out there over a span of a couple months versus looking at a short-term return, in the here and now, yes, I think that'll be a very strategic move, and it will definitely set you apart from everybody else.
Ilya, have you noticed any patterns on CPCs or CPMs during the crisis?
So I wouldn't say there is a big trend emerging yet, but what I've definitely seen is that in some areas, desktop traffic is starting to rise because more people are staying at home. So we should be monitoring that. Ultimately, everybody's CPC is going to be unique to their keywords, to their ad message, to their own competitive set. So I wouldn't be thinking so much about, is your CPC rising, but I would look more at, what's happening to overall click-through rate and your conversion rate. Because if your CPC is rising, but your conversion rate is holding steady, what that's telling me is that the people who are still there are worth competing for. They are worth the high CPCs because you can still monetize them.
All right, Sam, James has a suggestion that you capitalize on the goodwill you're generating from things you're doing for your customers by capturing reviews. What do you think about reviews and reputation in the crisis or recovery phase?
Great question. Even if you would have asked me this question before the crisis, one of the interesting things that happened as far as Google is concerned, they now have APIs with a lot of different review sites. So if you look at your brand, you'll see not just Google reviews, but you'll see reviews from, for example, if you're in the travel industry, you'll see reviews from TripAdvisor, from all the different online travel agent and all the different channels. So this was something that was happening. Second, there was a research that TripAdvisor had done that basically said that if you as a brand are responding to reviews, you have a higher, this has a direct correlation to conversion rate. So even before the crisis, it was a great opportunity to respond to reviews within 24 hours. So I would say it's especially critical now if you are getting any feedback in reviews. And one more thing is, one is looking at reviews. Second is looking at your social channels also to monitor for, because what happens, what is increasingly happening is a lot of people are tagging you on Twitter and having customer service related questions, feedback, opinions, and reviews that they're sharing on social networks. So monitor that and even respond to that as one of your review and reputation management channels.
All right, Sam, I've got a complicated question for you from Katie. If we're currently working on a website build refresh and ownership doesn't want to spend money, do you think we should push to spend the money to get the site live now? Are we doing the business a disservice by waiting to launch until we're out of crisis? So this is a timing question on these big backroom projects.
Great question. And this is, I mean, I wish there was a simple answer for that, but there isn't. So let's think about it. Let's step back and zoom out. There was a reason why, Katie, your management and you decided to refresh your website, because your current website is probably not working as well as you wanted it to. So there's a reason for that. The question right now is, you may have fewer resources, budgets may be under constraints. So there's a whole lot of factors that are outside your control. So this is a case to case, if you have the resources, and if you have the budget to do it now, then go ahead and do that, because that is only going to help you during the recovery phase. If you do not, then it's okay to take a pause, be empathetic to yourself and to your colleagues, because there's fewer resources, and decide that let's just have the right key messaging on the current website and make it as user-friendly as possible at this point in time.
Sam, somebody, Nadia from the audience wanted to point out that Google has disabled some GMB features because of the demand. Can you comment on that, and whether she's confirming, she's saying that responding to reviews is not available right now?
That's right. Responding to reviews is not available. In some cases, even updating your attribute information is delayed. Google is going for manual reviews. Now, here's something you need to think about. Most Google employees are working from home also. So they are not working at their peak. Also, what they are prioritizing is anything related to healthcare. So if you're a healthcare brand, a pharmacy, or something that is essential services, that's high priority. So they have resources that are dedicated towards those. After they get all those out, then the next level is all the other updates that are pending. So be patient. From what we understand from our Google counterparts, they are working at it. This is a priority, but it's going to take time. So even if they have temporarily blocked some features, it is going to be coming back in the next few days and weeks. At this point of time, we asked them for a timeline, but they don't have guidance, because like all of us, they're just scrambling to respond to all the news and everything that's happening every day.
All right, we want to thank everybody for joining us here for the CRG framework, the Marketer's Roadmap to Recovery. And please join us again in 2 weeks, and then every week after that. Take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.